Good morning, everybody. My name is Ayan Kumar Bandyopadhyay, and it's very early in the morning right now. The world is sleeping, and I have my hot coffee with me. Going to speak about one of the fascinating topics that I've come across in the last 10 years, design thinking. And yes, we are going to unlock and understand how do we build empathetic solutions using design thinking without being pushy. Now, more often than not, you will agree with me that when we have an idea, we are so hooked up with the idea that we forget the rest of the world, we forget the world's needs, and we start pushing our ideas into the throats of our users. And many a times, by doing this, at the end of everything, we see that the idea is not working at all. Design thinking is a process to understand, uncover the needs, and then come back to the drawing board and start building the solutions. Hence, I always say that it's very important for us to build empathetic solutions. And how do we do that? The powerful tool that I've come across, as I said, in the last 10 years is design thinking. There are so many other tools also available. However, design thinking, I will exactly tell you what is the difference in this particular tool than the other tools that we normally use. So let's kickstart the session. And what we are going to do is we're going to talk about the human-centered designs. We're also going to talk about why is it a big deal for us to build on empathy, to build on human-centric or human centricity for that matter. In my career, when a lot of people come to me and say that, Ayan, I have a brilliant idea. I know that it's feasible. I know it's viable also. I've invested so much of time, energy, and money. The first question that I ask is, do we have customers? Is there a desirability? Why does it matter? Well, we're going to discuss about that as well. 95% of the times we are busy solving a problem. We will do an exercise in the next session where immediately when we are given a kind of a problem, the response is that we need to solve that problem because that's how we are conditioned. Since our childhood, we are conditioned to solve problems. But design thinking talks about how do we find the right kind of problems to solve. Why is it important? We're going to cover that as well. Value capturing and value creation. Again, problem solving is more about capturing the value. Problem finding is more about creating the value. How do we do that? We're going to talk on that as well. Traditional thinking versus design thinking. Is there a difference? And if there is a difference, what is the difference? We're going to talk about that in this session as well. And the 5 steps of design thinking is something that I'm going to introduce today. Going ahead, I believe that all of you will have a kind of a live masterclass experience because I'm recording this video right now for all of us. It's going to be an uncut version, so enjoy. We need new choices. That's one of the primary reasons why design thinking will talk about more and more options and more choices. A pure technocentric and a management view of anything is not going to be sustainable because we need to talk about the needs. We need to understand, discover, identify the needs of our users because people don't buy solutions, we buy on our needs, right? So a pure technocentric and management view, which means feasibility and viability. If you look at this one, technocentricity is all about feasible. Is the idea feasible? Yes, it is feasible. Is the idea viable? Yes, it is viable. However, we need to build on something else. Only technocentricity and management view of anything is not going to be sustainable. Why? Because again, the desirability quotient will come into the picture, right? What we need is we need new ways and products which is going to balance the needs of the society and individuals. Very important, as I said, that we do not buy solutions. What we buy is on our needs. For example, if I ask many of you right now, how many of us will go ahead and buy a movie ticket today, right? How many of us will go ahead and buy a gym membership maybe? During the pandemic, if you remember, all of us were locked down inside our homes. And though we had high desires of going to a theater and watching a movie, we had high desires of going and socializing at the gym and working out. We did not do all of that stuff. On the other hand, how many of us actually bought a kind of a Netflix subscription or Amazon subscription? How many of us bought equipments of working out at home from Amazon? Many of us did, right? So even if we have high desires, we do not buy that. What we buy is we buy on our needs. So it's very essential for us to find out the problems, the needs, and then go back to the drawing board and start building blockbuster ways and products which is going to balance the needs of the society and individuals. Aspiring innovators do a lot of brainstorming sessions and really do this make it to the outside world in the form of new products and services and strategies. 95% of the times we fail. Why do we fail? We might be doing a lot of brainstorming sessions, but we are not able to lift off the ground and make it to the outside world because somehow or the other we are not able to understand or deliver on the needs of people. We have an idea which is inside our head, and we believe that the entire world is going to take that idea. We force fit the idea into the throats of our customers, right? So, design thinking will help us understand the right approach, the right way of going ahead and delivering on the needs of societies. We need an approach that is powerful, effective, broadly accessible, which can be integrated into all the aspects of our life and breakthrough ideas that can be implemented. Design thinking is the answer to that. I have been using design thinking since the last 9 years. It takes a lot of time. It just cannot be learned or exercised over a 3 days WhatsApp based course. We need to go out of the building and start looking at the world with a different perspective. A different paradigm may also exist. Are we observant enough? Design thinking will help us not only solve this powerful not only help us solve this kind of problems powerfully, but design thinking is actually a way of life, right? It's going to make us look at things from a very different paradigm. Okay, design thinking is gaining popularity as an economic activity in the world, and the entire world is getting shifted from industrial manufacturing to the creation of knowledge and experience. I'm sure that many of you would be using your YouTubes now. What you use on your YouTube and the kind of videos which are pushed to you are quite different from the kind of videos that I watch on YouTube and are pushed to me. Why? Because my viewing experience is different. Your viewing experience is different. And the entire world is shifting towards creating those meaningful experiences, right? So that's the reason why we are shifting from the waterfall engineering, which I may also call as, to something called as design thinking. We don't have to talk about this. I mean, innovation has become a survival strategy. Every one of us will believe in this. The evolution now is not on, or rather, the evolution is from design doing to design thinking. Previously, we used to do waterfall engineering. What is waterfall engineering? We had processes, we had everything in place. We would go back and just deploy. Today, Even before deploying, there is a thinking. And that's the reason why, I have come across this powerful phrase which says design is to design the design of a design. Let's also understand what design thinking is not. Many of you may come back and say that, hey, Ayan, is design thinking a kind of a miraculous cure? No, it's not. It's not a miracle cure. It can certainly help. Design is not design. Design is that aspect which captures the qualities of the designers and can help motivate and engage us and our ecosystem. Why are we building stuffs? Why are we building products and services? Whom are we building for? It's very important for us to capture and engage all of these users in our ecosystem of building. And that particular aspect of designing is called as design thinking. It's not a quick fix, it takes time to implement and should not be forced. Many a times I have seen people coming back to me when they submit their projects, they say that, hey, I have deployed design thinking. And when I ask them, how many users have you spoken to? They normally come up with something like 5, 6, 10. Now, let me ask you one thing. Do you feel that 5, 6, 10 number of users, if you go out and talk to them, is a good enough kind of, figure? The answer is no. I mean, we need to talk to at least 50. We need to talk to at least 100 users before we start implementing, right? So it takes time. It's not a quick fix. That much of time should be given so that we can capture the right kind of needs and insights. I'll talk about needs and insights also in another session. It's not a guarantee of success. It's a complement to improve communication, collaboration, consensus building. Many times, corporates do come to us and they ask us, can we do a kind of a collaboration workshop? Now, today I normally tell them, I suggest that, design thinking should be one of the workshops that we can do, and we can see collaboration happening across verticals, right? From the product team to the sales team to the marketing team to the team who is working on the budgets to the team who are working on the project management, everyone coming together. I mean, in bigger organizations, I've seen bigger organizations talking about, people come back to me and say that, hey, I don't even talk to the sales guy. I don't even talk to the business guy. I don't even talk to the product guy. I don't know. I don't even talk to the technology people. There is no communication. But design thinking is all about getting the ecosystem ready so that communication can start happening, collaboration can start opening up a lot of ideas, and then there is a consensus building. It's very important for us to understand design thinking is a kind of a change. The entire ecosystem has to immerse in this experience. It's a way of life. Okay? We will also understand that design thinking is not a magic, it's a method. Yes, there is a method to the madness. The magic is an outcome. However, if we believe that we are going to do a magic, it's not going to happen, right? The entire method revolves around being human centric. This aspect was missing so far. As I said, feasibility, viability, but the different dimension design thinking creates is called as desirability. And this desirability comes from human centricity, right? So with that, I would say that design thinking is a perspective. And the perspective is with a focus on people. Now, why the sudden interest of design thinking? Now, there are some fundamental cultural differences between the thinkings that we used to do previously and the kind of thinking that we would do today. More often than not, all of us know how to solve a problem. We always focused on doing the things right. But on the other side, design thinking talks about finding the right problem to solve, doing the right thing, plus doing the things right gives you the advantage, which is also called as a sustained advantage. Now, if you look at problem solving, doing the things right, we're talking about value capturing. But when we're talking about doing the right things, we're talking about creation of value. If I go ahead and I talk about value capturing, we're talking about efficiency movements. For example, the Six Sigma, lean manufacturing process for that matter, outsourcing, total quality management, corporate redesign, market segmentation, licensing. But when we are talking about value creation, then we are talking about the discipline of business whose primary concern is to innovate. So when design thinking becomes the core of the thought process, companies become more nimble in the face of rapidly changing markets and new competition. That's very powerful. Companies become more nimble. We accept the failures, and we also accept that failures will lead to the success. Being fragile will build into something called as anti-fragile, right? So problem finding, problem solving, doing the right things, doing the things right, value creation plus value capturing will give you a sustained competitive advantage. So if you look at it, design thinking, is it kind of a strategic thinking? Yes, it is. Value migration and the shift to a value creation economy is something that design thinking focuses on. Okay. And as I also say that design thinking is a holistic approach. And when I say holistic, what I mean to say is that we cannot only say that, hey, you know what, I'm doing product development. I'm just going to use design thinking over here. Or maybe I'm into service development. I'm just going to use design thinking here. And I'm going to forget the rest of the things. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a culture. Design thinking is a culture. I'm going to show you one of the videos of IDEO wherein they redesigned an entire shopping cart. The shopping carts that we use in the D-marts and the malls. So how could we come together, build on some consensus, collaborate to design an entire holistic offering that creates value at the different touch points that our users are. So is it product? Can we use design thinking there? Of course, yes. Is it a service? Yes, we can deploy design thinking, enhance the experiences. The brand, bigger brands like Godrej, PepsiCo for that matter, Nike for that matter. You all know about Apple. Infosys for that matter. Let me give you some Indian examples. All of these brands, Airbnb, again, Starbucks. I'm going to give you all of these examples and tell you how they have deployed design thinking across all of the offerings that they have. Can we use design thinking in digital experiences? Of course, yes, we can. Look at Netflix, the kind of experience Netflix is giving. Have they used design thinking? They have. How? Let me share that with you shortly. The entire business, the value proposition, what we also call as a unique proposition of a business. Can we use design thinking here? Of course, yes. Right? So creating value between the offerings, all of these things are nothing but offerings. And design thinking is a culture that needs to be deployed at an at each and every touch point of our offerings, where we find our users will kind of have an experience with us. Okay? We create options. It's more about creating options in design thinking. It's not about, one size fit for everything. The more and more options we have, the more iterations happen, the more possibilities come into the picture. A quick glance of what traditional thinking is and what design thinking is. So in traditional formats, we always try to figure out the right kind of answers. I give you a problem. Immediately what we do is we sit down with a pen and a paper and we start creating solutions. Well, design thinking tells you, hey, listen, hold on for a while. Are you getting the question right? Right? But the answer might be hidden in the question itself. So do we take time? Do we pause for a while, think, and find out the right question? Design thinking is about that. Traditionally, we used to speak about waterfall engineering, a repeatable and a proven process. Well, in design thinking, we are talking about intuition. We are talking about intuitive processes. There's nothing called as what has happened in the past is going to work again tomorrow. The world is changing. Every second it is changing, right? What might have worked in the past, maybe we have a historic data of that. But is it going to be repeatable and proven? Well, the change is happening so fast that that's the only constant. And that's the reason why the process is quite intuitive. Traditionally, we used to design for people. Sitting inside the workshops, we used to design for people. Today, we design with people. Imagine if I asked you that you have to design the cockpit of an aircraft. Yes, you hear it right. If we have to design the cockpit of an aircraft, would we be able to design that cockpit even without understanding how to drive a kind of an aircraft? So if we do not know that, it's better that we take one of the pilots as our user and design alongside him. Instead of designing for the pilot, we're getting the user sitting down with him, understanding the challenges, the impediments, taking the relevant inputs. We have no idea how to take off and land an aircraft, isn't it? So it's not possible to design for the pilot. We have to design with the pilot. Traditionally, we used to think for insights. In design thinking, we build for insight, the prototypes. A prototype is not a finished product. A prototype is a good enough, rough to inspire, rapid to evolve. Why do we do that? Because we want to get the insights of our users before we start building on an end-to-end kind of a solution. Traditionally, we used to tell more. In design thinking, we need to listen more. In our sessions, we have something called as empathetic listening as well. There are 5 kinds of listenings. So let's be aware of what our listening style is. We're going to talk more about it when we come to listening skills. Traditionally, we used to talk about stuck inside. Today, we talk about getting out of the building, right? Going and meeting those users, doing those empathy, mapping those empathy, coming back, validating all the hypotheses that we create inside the room, right? Traditionally, we used to talk about data. Today, we talk about stories. Why do we talk about stories? Because stories stick. We think in stories. If I ask each one of you, do you remember one of your most memorable incidences in your life? The first and the foremost thing that you have is images, which comes in your head. We don't think in words, right? So that's very important. Stories stick, hence design thinking. Traditionally, we used to talk about events. Today, we talk about experiences. How might we enhance the experience of all of you who are taking this 3 days WhatsApp based course? Can this be a kind of a design experiment? Of course, it can be. Is there a possibility that we can enhance the experience of each one of you? Of course, there is. And that's the reason why I say being nimble in the face of the ever changing markets and dimensions is what will help us be more oriented towards value creations. Traditionally, we used to talk about facts. Today, we talk about feelings, motivations, right? So when we do empathy, we need to understand what are they saying, what are they feeling, what are they thinking, what are they doing? Because unless and until we know each one of them, we will not be able to put ourselves into the shoes of our users. So today we talk about the feelings, motivations. Traditionally, we used to speak about a siloed process, doing everything in isolation. Today we talk about collaboration. All the different disciplines come together, collaborate to build on radical ideas. Traditionally, we used to talk about evolutionary. Today, we talk about inspirations, revolutionary, right? So, this is very, very important in design thinking. The moment we take care of all of these things, if we understand that, yes, this is the right question that we are trying to solve, if we if we focus on designing with, if we focus on building for, if we focus on listening more, getting outside the building, collecting the stories, the experiences, the feelings, motivations of people, collaborating, right? That's the time we will be able to find that, yes, a revolution is happening. Now, a human centered approach to innovation, all of these circles, when we talk about business viability, when we talk about technology feasibility, and now we talk about people desirability, right? So when you see when we are working on desirability and feasibility, we are doing something called as a functional innovation, right? Do people require this kind of a feature? Is it technologically feasible for us to build on that? Hey, that's functional innovation that we're doing. That's one part of innovation. Similarly, when we are talking about is it business wise viable? Is it technologically feasible? We're talking about process innovation, right? And when people need that, there's a high quotient of desirability. And we also know that this is going to make a lot of business sense to us. We are talking about emotional innovation, brands, relationships, marketing. And the center point where all of these circles come together, this is where the experience of the users are getting enhanced. This part is called as the experience innovation. So when desirability, we are talking about design thinking. Process viability, we are talking about, and technology feasibility, we are talking about process innovation. Functional innovation, desirability and technology feasibility. Desirability and viability, emotional innovation. Lots and lots of brands are there who are working on emotional innovation. Many a times you have seen, even for that matter, Nano, Tata Nano, I can immediately it comes in my mind. We saw that the motivation of building the Nano was really very inspiring. Ratan Tata saw the people, the small family on a rainy day, and he said that I'm going to change their life. Hey, he worked on desirability. He worked on feasibility. It was feasible, but many a times people come back and say, "Hey, Nano is a failure." Well, I'm nobody to say or comment on that. But what I can understand from this entire chart is maybe they did not work on the business viability part of it. The process innovation wasn't there, and hence the entire experience went hurt us. Many people can come back to me and say, hey, the positioning was wrong. Yeah, desirability and viability, business viability, emotional innovation, the brand, relationships, right? So many a times, we just work on a couple of these kind of concentric circles, but what we need to understand is it's a holistic approach. Everywhere design thinking can be applied. Everywhere. Right? Design is to design the design of a design. The first design is a noun, of course, which means a general concept or a policy. That's the design that we are expecting as an outcome. But what is the activity? The activity is also to design. What should we design? The plan or the intention, and hence the finished outcome. So design is to design the design of design. Even before getting into the ideation process, we need to design our ideas. And that's what design thinking is all about. Right? It's an iterative process. And if you look at it, it's kind of iterations that keeps on happening, building, measuring, and learning. 5 steps of design thinking are empathy, understanding people. That's where the human centricity comes into the picture. Once you have empathized with people, once you have understood their needs, and along with the needs, we also understand their insights. That's the time we will be able to find the problem. We get into defining our problem. We start taking the point of view. Once we define the problem, that's the time we get on to building the solution, which is ideation. Once we have the ideation in process, again, we get into the testing part of it. If we feel that the idea is not working, can we go back to empathy? Of course, yes. Can we go back and relook at the problem statement? Yes, we can. And that's the reason why it's iterative. And once we test the idea, we quickly build on something which we can share with our users and take their first-hand motivations, their first-hand feedback, and capture what works, what ideas they are giving us so that we can develop more. The impediments that they have, the challenges that they have. So build, measure, learn. And if I have to show you, how these circles are. So empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Stanford University, again, I would say is the entire literature that we have is from Stanford University. So this is how they have defined design thinking, all the 5 steps, all the 5 stages, I could say rather. Yes, as I was saying, Stanford School design thinking process. When we're talking about empathy, we're talking about various tools of empathy. This is exactly what we're going to deep dive with. So successively in the next sections that we have, we will deep dive into each and everything of all of these things. So interviews, shadowing, seek to understand, non-judgmental, various tools of empathizing. Defining, we're talking about personas, we're talking about objectives, we're talking about decisions, challenges, pain points, game creators. Excuse me. When we're talking about ideation, we're talking about sharing ideas. All the ideas are worthy. How do we diverge and how do we converge? How do we diverge and how do we converge? And the language when we use in design thinking, it's not but, it's yes and. The moment we say but, we are being judgmental. More often than not, when you use your sentences from today onwards, try to observe, are you using buts or are you using yes and? Because the moment you're using yes and, we are talking about a possibility. The moment we are talking about but, we are stopping a possibility. Then in prototype, we talk about mock-ups, storyboards, keeping it simple, keeping it fragile, fail fast, fail early in order to succeed later. or in order to succeed sooner, I might say. Iterations, quick iterations. And then in the test phase, we talk about impediments, what works. It could be role plays, iterate quickly. And if I have to show you a more deeper picture of what design thinking is all about, there are three stages. Remember, I was talking about that in my in the Harvard Business Study. They have spoken about it: inspiration, ideation, and implementation. So, inspiration, we try and understand. How do we understand? We observe. When we are observing and understanding, that's the time we will be able to create some point of views. When we are creating the point of views, that's the time we will be able to understand what ideas, what solution archetypes can be built on. When we have the ideation in place, we quickly build, not to sell, but to learn. Once a prototype is ready and we feel that yes, the test card that we have created makes a lot of sense, we go out and test. We take the feedback. And once we have done rapid testing, we build on the story. Storytelling, that's the time we go on to piloting. Once the piloting is done, it's time for a business model innovation, right? So if you look at these 3 points are inspirations. These 3 points are ideation process. And these 3 points are implementation. And all of these things are linked to each other. So the moment we are doing a business model innovation and we feel that this is not working, can we go back? Yes. Can we go back? Yes. And we go back, and we can go back anywhere. We can go back anywhere. For example, we are in point of view. We understand that it's not working. Can we go back? Yes. Right. This is the beauty of the design thinking process. Quick iterations, inspirations, ideations, implementations. So with that, this is the first understanding of design thinking overarchingly. In the next video, we will go and deep dive in each and every stage of design thinking and understand the tools which is required to be the design thinkers of the future. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.